Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Welcome to our 365 Daily Devotion Bible Characters Edition. So ngayon ay patuloy natin pag-aaralan ng ating series at ang paksa natin ay patungkol kay Hagar and Ishmael. God sees and God saves. So Hagar was an Egyptian servant of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Her story is deeply connected to a moment when human impatience attempted to assist God's promise. So when Sarah could not yet bear a child, she offered Hagar to Abraham as a solution. What followed was not peace but conflict. Hagar conceived tension, entered the household, and relationships fractured. Human plans, even when motivated by desire for fulfillment, often created wounds when they bypass God's timing. Later, after Isaac was born, Hagar and her son Ishmael were sent away into the wilderness, alone, rejected, and without provision. So Hagar faced what seemed like a death sentence for herself and her child. Yet in the moment of abandonment, God revealed his character. He saw Hagar's tears, heard Ishmael's cry, and intervened with mercy. Their story reminds us that although wrong decisions have painful consequences, God remains compassionate toward those who suffer because of them. So sabi sa Genesis chapter 21 verses 9 to 13, and Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be her with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was a very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. So, sinasabi lang dito sa katuruan natin, na una, wrong decisions hurt the people you love. So, the decision to involve Hagar in fulfilling God's promise was born out of impatience and fear. Sarah and Abraham acted with human reasoning instead of trusting divine timing. While their decision produced a child, it also produced emotional pain for everyone involved. Hagar suffered humiliation, Sarah experienced jealousy, and Abraham carried grief for both sons. So, scripture teaches that sin rarely affects only the person who commits it. Wrong decisions ripple outward and wound those closest to us. Even well-intentioned choices can become instruments of pain when they are not rooted in obedience to God. So this reminds believers that love must be guided by faith, not by anxiety or control. Second, wrong decisions damages relationship. So the household of Abraham became divided. What should have been a place of blessing became a place of tension. Trust was broken, rules were confused, and resentment grew. Sarah viewed Hagar as a threat. Hagar despised Sarah, and Abraham stood torn between responsibility and obedience. So damaged relationships are often the clearest evidence of decisions made outside God's will. So when we step ahead of God, unity is replaced by competition, and peace gives way to bitterness. This story warns us that relational fractures are not accidental but often the fruit of spiritual shortcuts. Third is wrong decisions result in pain and suffering. Hagar and Ishmael were sent into the wilderness with limited provision. The desert became the physical picture of inner consequences of human failure. Hagar reached a point of despair where she expected her son to die. This moment reflects the ultimate outcome of sin when it is left unchecked: hopelessness. Yet even here, God's mercy intervened. God heard Ishmael's cry and opened Hagar's eyes to a well of water. While God did not erase the consequences of a separation, He provided survival, direction, and promise. This teaches us that although sin leads to suffering, God's grace meets us in the wilderness. Applications natin dito, Una, prayerfully ask God for wisdom and guidance. So wrong decisions often come from rushing ahead without prayer. So Sarah and Abraham sought a solution, but they did not wait for God's instruction. No, prayer is not merely asking God to bless our plans, but surrendering our plans to His will. So believers must cultivate the discipline of waiting on God, seeking His wisdom through prayer, aligns our desires with His purposes. When we pause to pray before acting, we allow God to redirect us away from paths that lead to regret. Second is humbly listen to the counsel of godly people. No, God often speaks through wise and godly counsel. Pride resists correction, but humility becomes guidance. No, Abraham and Sarah acted independently instead of seeking spiritual accountability. So, listening to godly counsel protects us from blind spots. Wise voices helps us discern whether a decision is driven by faith or by fear. God uses community to guard us from costly mistakes. And lastly, no, eagerly seek God's peace as confirmation. So God's peace is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of assurance. So in the decisions made outside God's will often bring restlessness and anxiety. Decisions aligned with God may still be challenging, but they are marked by inner peace. So believers are called to discern God's peace as a guiding in confirmation. No? When the heart is unsettled, it may be God's warning to wait. When peace remains, even in uncertainty, it often signals God's direction. So discussion natin dito, no, what are the additional ways to avoid making wrong decisions? So, we avoid wrong decisions by cultivating daily obedience, remaining teachable, and grounding our choices in Scripture. So, a heart that consistently walks with God is less likely to stray in moments of pressure. No, spiritual maturity is built long before critical decisions arise. So let's dive deeper, no? Una, was Sarah cruel when she sent Hagar and Ishmael away? No? So Sarah's action was painful and harsh, yet it reflected unresolved fear and insecurity. So scripture does not excuse her behavior, but it shows how God worked through human weaknesses without endorsing sin. Pangalawa, why did God tell Abraham to follow Sarah's demand? No? So God reaffirmed that his covenant promise would come through Isaac. This instruction was not approval of Sarah's attitude, but a confirmation of God's redemptive plan. Panguli, who are Ishmael's descendants today? And what is God's plan for them? So Ishmael became the father of many nations as God promised. God's care for Ishmael shows that his love extends beyond covenant lines, revealing his heart for all peoples and faithfulness. His faithfulness to every promise he speaks.